One place that we tend to use antibiotics early on is in the hatchery. We will give birds a very low dose of antibiotics. We have bacteria that comes through the eggshell very easily, and we know that that's a source of contamination, and that source of contamination can affect the bird throughout the life of the flock. So we use that antibiotics to sort of bring that bacteria level down. So that's the first place that we would lose those antibiotics. To me, that antibiotic is gone very quickly. It would never be left in a residue for a meat. So that's the first place that we know where mortality is impacted, is when that antibiotic from the hatchery is removed. We then see an increase in what we call first week mortality. It at least doubles, if not triples, when that antibiotic is removed. The next place would be if the company has agreed to remove ionophores. Then if you have any challenge with this coccidial parasite, then you could see mortality throughout the life of the flock just from that alone. And then the next place is if, say, they obtain a bacterial illness during the flock, which is fairly common. And the most common one that we see when we remove sort of these preventative antibiotics is a disease called necrotic enteritis. And it is an intestinal disease that is caused by a clostridial organism. And then we use antibiotics to treat that. And it responds really well to treatment. Sometimes we have things even in people that antibiotics don't really work very well, but for necrotic enteritis, we have a couple of antibiotics that work really great. So we can treat them, the birds improve, they recover, and then they, live successfully until the end of the flock. If we've chosen to market antibiotic free, then we're not able to treat those sick flocks that get necrotic enteritis. Now, if you've made that choice to become antibiotic free and you've agreed with your customers, you will likely be using some alternative treatments that might also aid in the prevention of that disease. So hopefully we could have some of those on board in place of those antibiotics. But the other place where I see a lot of issues if you're claiming antibiotic free is issues with bacterial lameness. We have a couple of bacterial diseases. One is just a general kind of staph infections that can cause lameness, and then we have a bacteria that can create an infection in the vertebra and actually causes the birds to go down. But there can be fairly sensitive to antibiotics, so we could treat these flocks and potentially improve their well-being. Lameness is one score of animal welfare. If you have a welfare auditor come in, they will score gait scores and how the birds walk throughout the house. So if we can improve that disease process by use of an antibiotic, then we can see some improvements there as far as it affecting the total mortality for the flock. As far as treatment, probably a vast majority of our flocks go through without any treatment. We really work a lot as far as management and air quality and litter quality, feed, having good feed ingredients. We do a lot as far as that, making sure the birds are placed in the house at what we call the right stocking density. And I know that I've seen figures before that less than 2%, I think, are actually treated for sickness, and those numbers may have changed, but it's a really small percentage of what we do actually have to treat. So the use of antibiotics is not quite as rampant as everyone thinks. And I think there's some figures that got out several years ago that talked about how many tons of antibiotics that we use in animal agriculture. So it was kind of wrapped into everything. And so then people got fearful because they were like, wow, where does all this stuff go? But a lot of that is when you're making feed in a complex for 1 million birds a week, it's a lot of feed. So we have a lot, and it's included in very small levels. So people don't really seem to understand that either. So they don't realize that we're just at the level for prevention in the feed. But when you're looking at the billions of birds that we produce a year, it comes out to a lot. So I think sometimes those figures get overwhelming.